At the very end of the Parsha, we read the troubling story of the blasphemer. Here's the background. Back in Egypt, there was one time when there was an intimate relationship between an Egyptian and a Jew, and it was a forced one. One of the Egyptian slave masters violated a Jewish woman, and they had a son as a result. Now fast forward, they're in the wilderness. Each one of the tribes has its own camp, and this fellow goes to pitch his tent in the camp of Dan. Done. Why? Because that's the tribe his mother was from. The other members of the tribe of Dan object. They say, look, we're very sorry, but it goes by the father. Your father was an Egyptian. You don't belong here. They have a court case. The fellow loses, and he goes out in a moment of tremendous anger and curses God. Unforgivable sin. The question is, tribe of Dan, what is up? You're in the wilderness. There's an endless amount of space. What is the big deal if one extra dude pitches one extra tent in your camp? And one commentator explains, they were worried about this fellow, this son of an Egyptian man. They were worried that he might be a bad influence. And they were right. You see, retroactively, he cursed God. Now, people get very upset when they lose lawsuits. I can tell you that. I've seen it. But still, you can be upset, but you don't curse God. So we see from here that one person can poison an entire camp, or neighborhood, or school, or bunk, or classroom. So we've got to be very careful. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to hermetically seal ourselves and our children inside and make sure there are no outside influences whatsoever. We have an obligation to share and open our homes, to give our time and share our wealth with those less fortunate. But we do have to be careful. We have to be mindful and always watch out for bad influences. And there's one time when we have to be particularly careful. There's a story told in Pirkei Avos, Ethics of the Fathers, of a great sage who was traveling on the way from one place to another, and he was stopped by a stranger. Said to him, where are you from? He said, oh, I come from a city of great sages and scholars. The stranger says to the rabbi, really? If you'll move to our town, I will pay you a fortune, a king's ransom. And the rabbi says, for all the wealth in the world, I won't do it. I'll only live in a place of Torah. Why, in that story, do we need to be told that the rabbi was traveling on the way? Just say there was a rabbi, he got this incredible offer to leave his place of Torah to go to a place that didn't have a Torah framework, and he said no. So one commentator explains, that detail is very important. It's telling us that you have to be extra careful when you're traveling. When you're in your home, you have control over the environment. You can control what comes in. Yes, the internet is a big problem, but you can filter it. You should filter it. But when you're on the road, far less control. You don't know who you're going to be sitting next to on the bus or the train or the plane. So when you're traveling from point A to point B, be extra careful.